Peace, family. It's Asmar Bilal, host here, Secure Tomorrows, where we talk about what happens after the lights, after the cheers, and how athletes build real legacy outside of the game. Today's guest, he embodies everything that this is all about. He was a wide receiver at the University of Notre Dame, also a captain. He also played as well in the NFL and transitioned to be a strength and conditioning coach at his alma mater. Now educator, entrepreneur, and founder of Sacred Mastery, a platform built to elevate mindset, heart set, and purpose. He's also advancing the game globally as well, introducing American football and holistic growth to the youth in Africa. From Detroit, Michigan, proper, to South Bend, from scoring touchdowns to now coaching the next generation, from serving those on the field to serving those around the world. I got my man with me, David Grounds. Pleasure to have you on, man.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir.
Man, I got to have you do all the introductions from now on moving forward.
Ah, man, I got you. But yeah, man, it's great indeed. But let's rewind it back. Detroit proper. Yeah, I know you made the correction with the proper. We got to emphasize proper when we talk about Detroit.
313.
So Detroit, Michigan.
Yeah.
Man, Detroit, man. Detroit. I've actually never been to Detroit.
Yeah.
But I've heard some stuff through you. But, man, I know that was the genesis of it all, right? Starting off in Detroit. So if you could just speak to, man, how did this all start for you?
Yeah.
How did ball and everything start just coming out of Detroit, Michigan?
The first, we got to get you to the city, since you ain't never been to Detroit. Secondly, man, it all started in the neighborhood. Shout out to Finkel at Greenfield to be exact. But it all started playing pick 'em up, mess 'em up on the street, playing tackle football at the park, unorganized, just the kids out of the neighborhood playing. And my brother, he was the one who actually started playing organized football first. And just following in his footsteps and seeing how much success he had, seeing how much fun he had, he was the impetus to get me involved in playing it. And started playing in 5th grade and probably didn't take it real serious until I got to high school. And then once I got to high school, my junior year is probably when I started to take off. I started to run track, get faster, get stronger. I was always a bit smaller. So, playing professionally, I couldn't necessarily see that in my future. But once I got offered by the University of Notre Dame my junior year, I knew I had a chance. So that's how I got started.
Okay. And then from Detroit, did you already know about the University of Notre Dame? Was that like your dream school, or like how did you find out about Notre Dame and why Notre Dame?
Yeah. It all made sense. Once I got the offer from Notre Dame, everybody around me, from my coaches to my mother to my grandmother, they're like, you going to Notre Dame. So I had a choice, but I technically didn't have a choice. And Rodney Culver, the late great running back, he was from my high school. May his soul rest in peace. But he was from my high school. My high school coach, Coach Carter, and the entire staff, they coached him at DePores. And then he came to Notre Dame. And so once I had the opportunity to, from his experience, they thought this was going to be the best place for me. And it just made sense, right? You're on national TV every week playing football. Your family can watch you from back at home. You're getting the best of the best. Education, excellence resides here. In addition to that, it was 3 hours away from home.
Yeah.
And then the presence of God, the value system here, it was extremely important to me. So to have sport, to have academics, and to have God, it was a no-brainer for you.
Had everything.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. And then, so from that transition, we make it to the University of Notre Dame. And if you could just hit on that, like making it here at Notre Dame, we speak about it all the time, right? But how was Notre Dame for you once you made it here?
Honestly, it was tough, right? You come here in a different environment. Everything's different. Growing up, like I mentioned, growing up in Detroit, the demographics is different. The environment is different. You got to figure out a different way to survive and a different way to navigate. And luckily for us, we had people that embraced us, help us to navigate the Notre Dame streets. And we know what Notre Dame is about. Notre Dame is about excellence. It exposed me to so many different things, not only here locally, but around the world. We had opportunities to travel, to play ball, to meet people from all across the country, different countries. So very thankful for Notre Dame and what it's done for my life.
Yeah, truly. We had some good times here. And then also let's get on that. Like the way that I know you, of course, was you was a coach when I was here.
Yeah.
So speak to that transition from just going from player at the University of Notre Dame to then transitioning into coaching. I'm sure that was a humbling experience.
Very humbling experience, and not too much prepares you for that transition, right? So all you know is ball growing up, right? You know everything is going to be set out, laid out in front of you, your whole schedule, all your expectations. You know where you're going to class, knowing you're going to practice. And so when you're making that transition from playing to life after playing, very challenging. Luckily for me, I had some great people in my corner, great families. One in particular, shout out to Dan Murphy. Dan Murphy, if you're watching, I appreciate you, love me. But then that transition is tough. You know, you got to figure out a whole new mindset, a whole new skill set to be able to navigate a lifestyle that you kind of prepared of, but not really prepared for. And so going from playing to coaching, I knew that I wanted to give guys like yourself and others the opportunity to be ahead of that transition, to start working on the minds, the hearts, the skill sets, having them appreciate everything that they have access to while they're at the University of Notre Dame, and have them start thinking about tomorrow. So,
Love that. Love that. Yeah, and for sure, I know you was a captain at the University of Notre Dame, or a big timer. Yes, sir. And as you mentioned, when you at the University of Notre Dame, I mean, it's all about ball. Or you came here for ball. When you came here to the University of Notre Dame, did you have any thoughts about what's next other than just ball alone?
you know, I majored in business. Although I wanted to major in architecture, I kind of got detoured away from that just because of the demands of ball. But I knew at some point I wanted to do something in business. I didn't know exactly what, but while I was here, the focus was ball. And you know, your whole life you thinking you're gonna make it to the NFL. You thinking that, you know, you're gonna sign this $1 million contract, buy moms a big house, you know, take care of the whole neighborhood. And unfortunately it doesn't happen that way for everybody, you know. And for majority of us, we have to prepare for a life after that. And so having had people who emphasize that but didn't necessarily show you how, I think that's where the challenging component is. So that transition, you know, just like in football, things happen, and we have to have the proper mindset to adjust. Right, sudden change is what we call it
On change.
on defense. You know, you could be on an 8-play defensive drive, you know, and you get a stop. You come in and you resting on the bench, and then all you hear is sudden change. Your offense just threw a pick, and now you right back up. And so there's some elements of life embedded into the game of football that help you transition, but it's at a different scale, you know. So we know challenges happen in sport, and sport is a sacred space, but nothing can truly prepare you for life. And so being able to have, you know, the proper information, the proper mindset to be able to navigate a transition from after sport into regular life, you got to have the right people around you, giving you the ropes, giving you the game, cheering you along, supporting you. Yeah, it's important. You know, a lot of the athletes struggle with that today. So, you know, that's why we're here.
All right, yes, sir. And then so let's hit on that, right? A lot of what this platform is about is speaking on those transitions, right? So I know you made it out of Detroit to South Bend. I know that was probably huge for you and also your family. And then I know you also played professionally. But as you just mentioned, I mean, ball, I mean, at some point it comes to an end, and now you got to focus on that next transition. So how was that moment for you when the game ended for you?
Yeah. And it ended on someone else telling you couldn't play, not necessarily you walking away from the game, right? It's tough. All your identity is wrapped up into one game that you've been playing all your life. And this is all you know. Like biologically, this is all you know. And for that to be stripped away from you, it's like it's almost like your world could end. Right? And so in that transition, you really gotta find what you're made of. And you really gotta find who you are. And if your purpose, if your identity doesn't come from something greater than yourself, something greater than what you do, it's going to be very challenging. So it's important to put your faith in God. It's important to find your identity in God. It's important to have the psychology of Christ so that you can move forward past any obstacle and through any transition. And that's what I heavily relied on in that process. As well as good people around me, as I mentioned, trying to help me navigate what's next, trying to expand my mind to new opportunities. So
Yeah, for sure. So from your response, and as I already know you, you're a brother, of course, but very faith-filled understanding, right, of just self-knowledge of who you are that helped you to move past that transition. But speak on that. I know at the University of Notre Dame, you led the fellowships. We had that. And then also, I know, right, faith is a big part of your life now. But if you could just speak on that, why exactly did you have that initiative to kind of lead the fellowships and things at Notre Dame? And just for the audience listening, if you could just give a little bit more context to what is fellowship?
Yeah, for sure. So fellowship was a space where we gathered together as players and coaches to develop our mindsets, to develop our hearts. And my profession, my job was to help develop you guys physically. So we're in the weight room, getting faster, getting stronger, more flexible, more agile. They're doing all these physical components, which is necessary for everybody to be successful football players. But then there's an element that I figured that needed to be added, which was fellowship, where we could come in, take time, sit down, and focus on the mentality that's needed, the identity that's needed, the psychology that's needed, right? The courage that's needed to continue to go through not just the game of football, but all the things that's happening around the game of football, right? Guys is in college. We know what happens in college, right? You're away from home. People get homesick. And then girlfriends break up, with you. You're having all different kind of challenges, and it's important to keep the mind stable. It's important to keep the heart stable because at the end of the day, you want to maximize who you are. And so having something like fellowship was not only beneficial for the guys, but it was also beneficial for me. And it was a space where we all grew together and we grew closer together. And I believe it had an impact on why we were so successful on the field and our brotherhood.
Yeah, for sure. That was going to be the next question. Like, do you feel like it truly impacted the way that we played? Because ultimately, I mean, I remember those. Those were some of the best moments that I had while I was at the university. Me, all the other players, and we were able to come together after practice voluntarily choosing to be there and speaking about the word of God and like having these vulnerable like spaces where we can talk and grow and build together. I think it was special indeed. So yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it led to our success.
Yeah, absolutely. It was authentic. It was transparent. It was a safe space for people to come and share the different struggles, share their celebrations. And it was where we truly was in a foxhole as brothers to support one another. One of the things that I call spirit is energy. And so in something like football, you need energy, you need passion, you need courage, you need all these different fruits of the spirits, if you will, to be able to be successful with the people that you're doing it with. And so to see that raw emotion, control raw emotion with strategic strategy, if you will, be put into place, it brought us closer whenever we had tough practices, tough workouts, and then definitely, as you know, when we had games. So
yeah, so a full development,
complete development,
a complete development, and that's huge. Honestly, just speaking on this topic because I speak so often about the transition from sport. I mean, and all of it, a lot of it is just your body. I mean, you are literally maxing yourself out, exerting and playing a football game, and just the repetition of that over time. It's like when I finished the game, I felt uncomfortable just being still and like having to deal with that stillness. But one of the things that always come back to me is you then have to deal with your thoughts too. And I think what you mentioned is very crucial because it develops who you are inside as well as the physical body. And I think that's honestly one of the biggest parts that guys struggle with in that transition. Yeah, so just to rewind it back, I know we were speaking on the transition. So just for yourself, right, with that transition, I know you became a strength and conditioning coach afterwards. But soon I know you took the step to depart from the university. But do you feel like outside of the helmet that you were prepared for that transition for yourself? Do you feel like the university in itself prepared you for what's next?
Yeah, I feel like to the best of their ability, the university prepared me. Um, I think there's so much that we all don't know along this journey called life that we have to figure out. And what I think about often is that we constantly have to reinvent ourselves. It's like Blockbuster, for those who remember Blockbuster. They went out of business, right? Because of streaming companies like Netflix. And it's important to not only do what you do, but also be able to look 10, 15, 20 years ahead, generations ahead at that, right? Talking about securing tomorrow, to be able to transition through these different time frames. And so for me, these transitions are about reinventing yourself. Every part of who you were in the past is still a part of you, but you got to stack and you got to add onto that to be able to move forward because life is changing, technology is changing, the world is changing. And so we have to be able to adapt for what we have. And so it's all about constantly reinventing ourselves for these different transitions in every aspect of our life.
Yeah, truly. And do you feel like the University of Notre Dame cultivated that innovative spirit as well? I know you talk about the transition such as sudden change.
Yeah.
And I can think back to when we was playing, we literally had sudden change that was implemented within the workouts, right, to help you be able to adapt. But I think that ingenuity and to be innovative, I think that's a different type of development. Do you feel like you got that from the university itself, or do you feel like you got it from perhaps your faith or your belief?
Yeah, I think the university supported that, right? To get down to the details of it, I think it came through my faith. It came through those quiet moments of dealing with self because we all got an enemy within, right? We balance these different thoughts, these different emotions. And once you can overcome the battle within, and people can help you with that, but you got to take ownership of it. Once you overcome that battle within and you begin to believe in the God that created you, believe in the gifts that he's gifted you with to overcome the challenges, that's when it all starts. And so you can have all this support around you, but until you take ownership of it, that's when it's really show yourself in your life.
Yes. That's self-mastery.
Self-mastery.
Self-mastery. So let's talk on this. I know for you, right, you became a strength and conditioning coach. That's how I met you. That's how we bonded, right, and grew our relationship. But then you also decided to take the next step for you. So what exactly was it for you in that moment, leaving, I mean, stability, right, being at the University of Notre Dame and then tapping into entrepreneurship? What was stirring up inside of you to let you take that leap for yourself?
Yeah, my heart was yearning for more, right? Very thankful for the opportunity that I had at the University of Notre Dame in various aspects, as a student athlete, as a coach, but my heart was yearning for more. I wanted to experience more in life, and I felt like I had to come outside my comfort zone, which was Notre Dame, right? Being from Detroit, but then having the opportunity to grow up at Notre Dame, I felt like I needed to take the next step outside of that comfort zone to step into the person that I was going to be becoming. And so the yearn to help my community, the yearn to help people internationally, and to give my gift to the world in a different capacity. It was boiling inside of me, and I couldn't neglect it or ignore it any longer.
Mm-hmm. I got you. So I mentioned in the introduction, right, Sacred Mastery here, right, this platform. Yeah. If you could just break that down for us, what is Sacred Mastery and why did you start this journey?
Yeah. So Sacred Mastery, it's an enterprise focused on mastery of self, health, and wealth. And so back to this development of self, we try to improve mentally, emotionally, and improve our skill set, all using the word of God. But yeah, so self mastery, just focusing on the mindset, the heart set, and the skill set to be the best versions of ourselves, right? So that we can optimize everything that we are, which is our health, and everything that God has given to us, and be good stewards of our wealth as well. So this allows us to do more good in the world, right? A healthier version of myself mentally, emotionally, physically allows me to be better for those around me, right? And I can be a greater steward for that which God has gifted me with. And so Sacred Mastery, we're just trying to go around and improve the lives of people who have that interest. And as I mentioned, we use the word of God as our foundation to better ourselves.
Understood. And then I know just with Secure Tomorrows, one of the things I'm always talking about is whenever you get done with the game, it's all about leveraging the same skill sets, the same mindsets that you cultivated while playing ball.
Yeah.
Or you want to be able to use those same things and just use in business. So for yourself, how did your athletic background kind of help shape the system that you built for Sacred Mastery?
Yeah, absolutely. First and foremost, it's part of our DNA, right? It's something that's been ingrained in us over the years to be, courageous, to take risks, to be mentally tough, to be physically tough. And all of those characteristics, they translate into business. It's just at a different scale, right? And different experiences. And so the DNA of it doesn't change. You're just dealing with it in a different environment. And so now you have to believe in yourself in a whole different capacity. Now you have to be courageous in a whole different capacity. And you have to have a skill set that you hone day in and day out that other people begin to respect. And so, at the end of the day, we're looking to win, right? In sports, we wanted to win the game, win the conference, well, not Notre Dame, but win the championship. And now we're looking to win in life, win it within our families, right? Win within our communities, and just win at life. And so that those ingredients don't change, but how you play the game changes.
Right. Understood. So yeah, man, the course and Sacred Masters in itself is very helpful in many ways. I know one of the last ones that I talked about, we actually hit on this verse in Timothy where it talks about actually working out, but then also we talked about how using these same skill sets, but then for your faith and understanding as well. So I know that was super big. If you could just hit on that, I think you basically talking about that right now, what you're saying, but if you could just break that down.
Yeah, bodily exercise is of value, but godliness is of more value. And so we know within the realm of sport, it's beneficial, right? It has so many different mental, physical benefits, but godliness is beneficial to all things. And so obviously we want to be the best versions of ourselves. We not only want to have the bodily exercise added to us, but we want the godliness added to us. And so typically when you're working out, you have this image that you're looking at, right? Your arms, your chest, your abs. So have you. But then what are we looking at when it pertains to our spirit? And so the image that we're supposed to be looking at is the image of God, the image of Christ, to see if we're measuring up so that we can be that reflection, so that we can be that in the spiritual realm. And that's our example. Christ is our model. And it's important that all people know this because the body is just one aspect of life. There's a whole spiritual, energetic field that we have to tap into. And God he has that as an expectation for us. So Sacred Mastery just tries to deliver that to the people for those who want it. And here we are.
Yeah, for sure. That's big time. And just speaking on that, I know just what you being so faith filled, of course, right? The fruits of it, I mean, it are many things, but I know for you, you've been connecting a lot, and I know because I've been with you as well. But with, I mean, Africa.
Yeah.
So if you could just talk on that, like, what are some of the things that you're doing in Africa, and what are some of the connections that kind of led you that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So coaching, right? It's been the sacredness of sport that has connected us all together to go into the continent of Africa. So over in Africa, we've been going over at the nonprofit Inqua, Natural Knowledge, Wisdom, and Advancement. And over there, we're just looking to empower the youth through flag football. And we've been doing it for the past 5 years, looking to make an impact, on the country and beyond, just doing our best. We know flag football is on the rise, and people have embraced us. They've embraced the sport, and we're excited about it.
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, that's big time. I know we've been doing those camps together, and I know you've also made an initiative to also do flag football here as well in the U.S., right? How was that, and what's kind of your vision with that?
Yeah, it's been going well. So just recently did a clinic for Ghana Educational Services, and they're looking to implement flag football into the curriculum in the country because of all the opportunities. We know that flag football is going to be an Olympic sport in 2028. And so when I came back from that trip, I decided to implement flag football here locally. And the vision here is to continue impacting the youth, both young men and young women alike, using the means of flag football, but also at some point be able to connect the United States to the continent or internationally, just in general. But the goal is to give the youth opportunities and to continue to develop their minds, their hearts, and their skills as well.
Yeah, for sure. Very purpose filled. And just thinking of it, if you could, so you, I mean, you've gone from player to coach to entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right. So through all those transitions for yourself, what do you feel like has been the common like thread through it all?
Yeah, you gotta stay solid mentally, right? Because you're learning a whole new landscape. So as a player, you know, what comes with that, balancing school, ball, social life, and then actually being successful on the field and paying attention to the playbook. That's one round. Taking it from player to coach is a whole different realm within itself. So now you're not just focused on you, you're focused on everyone around you and how in harmony the organization runs and how you can better the student athletes that you work with. And essentially you putting them first before yourself. And all the information that you've gathered, you want to pour into them. And then navigating from coach to entrepreneur, completely different landscape, right? And so constantly having this checks and balances with your mental, your emotional, and your skill set is so important because you're transitioning into a whole new environment. And so you got to be prepared. You got to be aware of what's going on. You got to believe in yourself to take the steps to transition into these different segments. And essentially it's just it's a mental, emotional, and skill thing. And as you continue to grow and develop, that's going to always be in play. And the quicker we can accept that, I think the better we're going to be at being successful.
Yeah, for sure. And I know for you, so self mastery, it's a mix of ancient wisdom and also modern life. Right. So what do you think the mix of that, how would that be able to help not only just athletes, but anyone just facing like a life after?
Yeah, for sure. So times change, technology changes, but principles don't, right? I think that's one thing that God is constantly communicating to us. The more universal principles, universal laws that we can apply in our life, the more successful we can be. So as I mentioned, there's certain things that are forever changing. And we see that through the culture. We see that through technology. but then there's certain things that are just stagnant, and truth never changes. And so those principles which we got to acquire is so deeply important, right? The scripture says, and the truth shall set you free. Only reason we in bondage, the only reason we stuck is because we lack truth. And so the more truth that we can acquire, the more we'll be able to have freedom to be able to navigate.
That's deep. And I know for you, you're a true seeker. How important is it? I think a lot of times what happen, not even just for athletes, but in life, is once people achieve or finish up a university, or let's say they finish off in high school, that becomes the end of their learning.
Right.
Right. So they never grow. They might age, but they don't necessarily grow. So how important is it, right, to continue growing as you continue through life?
To live is to learn, and to learn is to live. To acquire a growth mindset, we're constantly not just learning new information, but mastering the information. And it's so important. And so, with technology and phones and the internet, we're over flooded with information.
Mm-hmm.
But the key is to be able to master something so that you can implement it and create a change around you and add value. So we're forever learning, right? There's so much wisdom that God has placed into this earth that we have to constantly seek him, constantly be on our journey, and that growth mindset will make you successful.
Yeah, truly. And then, so if you could just hit on what are some of the things that you have done yourself once transitioning out to further your education? Yeah. Like, were you seeking out like courses? Like, were you connecting with other like alums? Like, what helped you get to the place that you were at?
Yeah, your environment is important, right? Who you hang around with is important. That's why I spend a lot of time with you, because I know you're a seeker yourself. But being around people who are seeking information, being around people who are on a journey to bring value to this world is so important. So definitely reading, studying, seeking courses, being around people who I can learn things from. Mm-hmm. Traveling. Wisdom comes through a lot of traveling and seeing new things and seeing new cultures and experiencing new people. And just listening, being observant to your surroundings is so important. So all those things, right? Just being able to take in life and take it in from people who are experienced.
Yeah, for sure. And I know we've been together for quite some time, and you've helped me and mentored me in many different ways. And I think one thing that I have learned from you, just like with the transition after, I know a lot of us, when we get to sports, it's all about what can sports provide for us? And most times it's monetarily.
Right.
Like, what are ways in which I can make the most or amass the most amount of money so I can give back to my family? So I think one of the underlying things is to be able to give back. And I know from you, just in business, what business comes with is making money, but the way to make money and put yourself in the marketplace is to be able to serve the marketplace.
Absolutely.
As well. So if you could just hit on that, because I mean, a lot of people don't think with this type of mindset. Most people just work to acquire money instead of, right, providing an offer or a service, and try to literally put your focus on how can I serve others to then receive the reward.
For sure. So, the greatest amongst you shall be a servant. Right? And so a lot of times in our natural mind, it's typically selfish. It's typically me-based. And when we can elevate beyond that, we start to think about how can we serve others. And that's extremely important, right? Because our own prosperity comes within serving others, bringing value add to other people. And even to the point that you talked about with offerings, right? God talks about making peace offerings, making offerings to him. And that's so that we can stay in relationship. And the reason why he wants us to make peace offerings is not only to stay in relationship with him, but to have the ability to impact other people, to have something to offer for other people so that we can be of service to them. God gives us so much. He offers us so much. He wants us to be in relationship with him, to learn how to offer things to him as well as offer things to humanity. So, number one greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, mind, and soul, and then to love your neighbor like yourself.
That's deep. Sheesh. Man. But yeah, that's big time right there. But just to kind of move forward, one of the questions that I did want to ask you is with sports, and this is heavy what we hit on. Honestly, when sport ends for people, as we mentioned, you just mentioned, it's a part of your DNA.
Right.
So when you lose the game, you feel like you lose in self almost.
Yes.
And with this, I think it becomes a loss of purpose. So for athletes that are transitioning, and I mean, as you mentioned, right, some of the unfortunate part about it is it's not you going out on your own time, right? It's somebody else dictating that for you. But when that transition does happen, what are some ways that people can reset and be able to understand their purpose in this life?
For sure. And your purpose comes from He who created you, from God, right? We have many different individual purposes, collective purposes that are important, but your ultimate purpose comes from God. And so, as an athlete, we're typically playing for some type of trophy, some type of monetary value, and that's good, but we can't make that more important than the prize that God has for us. Right. So we're playing something that's supposed to be for eternity. There is no end. And the crown doesn't corrupt. And so in this journey, in this race, in this competition, it takes something bigger than what we've created within this world. Right. We're talking about building a kingdom of heaven, a place where there's no more stealing, no more dying, no more crying, no poverty, no lack, no ignorance. That's important, right? So we as people who have been given the responsibility to steward this earth and to steward the resources that we have, to steward our minds and our hearts, it's important that we stay focused on the prize that God has for us. And that's being who He expects us to be and living to the standards that He expects us to live up to.
That's big time. And then, so for you, I guess if you could just give the listeners a piece of advice that could help them just through preparation, through transition, right? What would that be?
I want to look right into the camera. So take your development serious. Take your health serious. Understand the importance of your mental health, your identity, your psyche, and even just how you feel, your courage, your belief. Make sure you get all this from God, because it's going to allow you to do the things that you desire to do and that you was born to do.
Man, that's big time. So yeah, man, I mean, you the blueprint of what this is all about, right? From player to coach to creator, you master the art of evolving with purpose, right? You didn't let the transition take your identity. You let it transform you, right? So if you could, for those who's watching, right, that want to be able to listen to more of your wisdom, right, that want to tap into what you got going on as well, where can they find you and where can they find Sacred Mastery to be able to invest in it?
Absolutely. You can follow me personally at d.grimes7 on Instagram. And then you can find Sacred Mastery at sacredmastery.world. You can sign up. We have class offerings that we do monthly where we focus on the mental, the emotional, and the physical. And it's a great community where people come together who have like minds looking to improve their situation.
All right. And honestly, man, a lot of what Secure Tomorrows is about is being able to draw attention to not only the transition, but for athletes to be able to resonate. I know they'll resonate, but it's to be able to have that community. And I know that one of the things that we spoke on earlier was fellowshipping and how important that was for us to be able to fellowship and come together, right, with this, community and likeness and pursuance of our faith and all these things together. So how important is that now after the transition of just being able to unite and have a community with one another?
First and foremost, I just want to say thank you for putting this together, for having Secure Tomorrows to reconnect with that community and to build something from that standpoint going forward. So I honor you for that. Secondly, it's extremely important, with all the different connections that we made, and everybody goes through their lives, they go through their challenges, they go through their obstacles, and they come out better for it. But it's also important to come back together, for a purpose, with all our experience, all our abilities, all our networks, to be able to do something collectively together. And so thankful for this opportunity to be sitting here with you, but also thankful to see, the books, the Elohi Gilmans, the Loves, all their interviews, Sarge, and to see how all of us collectively who have like-minded passions and like-minded energy to come together to see what we can continue to do, not just for ourselves, but for others.
Yeah, truly indeed. And that's kind of always been my mindset and mentality with it. And it's it's been great just being able to have the sit downs, the one-on-ones. I know we stay connected in many ways, but to have those sit downs and speak to some of these guys that we of course had relationships with in the past. So it's been good, and hopefully the intention is that we can use this platform as a resource to be able to serve others. So when they're going through these transitions or whatever they may need, they can come to Secure Tomorrows to be able to get the things and tools that they need to equip them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is definitely a platform for that. And we've been doing a phenomenal job, and I appreciate it. I know everybody else does. I also know too, we all been in the trenches together in sport, as we've been talking about, and to get in the trenches in life, man, that's a whole nother game that we can continue to play and be inspired about. So
Yeah, true indeed. Man, and give thanks for you joining as well. I knew it had to happen at some point, right? I know that you've been crucial in my development just as a man, and also with my faith and understanding. So give thanks for hopping on and being able to share your wisdom with the audience. Right, it was good to have you on there. Look at this. Don't wait on the last whistle to wake up. Start building now, because your tomorrow doesn't build itself. Because the game ends, but legacy, that's on you to secure. So for the last question, as always, are you ready for when, if when was tomorrow?